Each day we're open right now Monday through Friday. Our food boxes run from about 9 to 11 in the morning. And we serve a lot of families, a lot of seniors. A lot of the families, or most all of the families, are very low income. So making under that $25,000 a year, 1 in 5 children in our community are hungry. So we want to be here to provide enough food to sustain a family. So when they come in and pick up a box, that box is supposed to provide meals for a family of 4 for about 4 or 5 days.
Trinity Cathedral has been an incubator for so many organizations in their founding, including Nourish Phoenix, which started with several congregations in the valley kind of doing their own thing and then coming together as one organization to really find that strength.
So the founding organizations really laid the foundation to create what ICM is today. Different faith-based communities came together, including Trinity in the early 70s, to create what we see today as a nonprofit organization here in Central Phoenix. And it's so important to the community. It provides food and clothing and hygiene. And we would not be here without the founding churches and faith-based communities that came together to provide the services that are here today. I think as an organization, we've grown so much over since the 60s, since we were incorporated in the 80s. I think when it began, it was out of the need and the need to help the community. Now we look at it as a community hub. We're here to serve the people that come in with anything that they may need, whether it just be a referral or now that we've started a job program. I think in the early days there was that need of food and clothing and to give help. And now we look at the whole person.
This is one of the few places that I know that I can send people who either have jobs or they're living on fixed incomes, they have a roof over their head, where they can come and get essential services, either food, clothing. And I'm really excited to hear the services that they're adding. And it is, to the best of my knowledge, it's one of the few places in the valley that you can send folks for these kind of services.
So each day we serve right around 80 to 100 families per day right now. Those numbers fluctuate. During the pandemic, we've seen huge spikes and then kind of huge lulls as well. So it's really unusual right now, but 80 to 100 people per day. On an average, we're serving 20,000 families a year.
Trinity has been involved with Nourish Phoenix from the get-go, and that is something that we need to continue to be involved in. Trinity has been very helpful over the years in sponsoring events for Nourish Phoenix. Trinity has been a major source of volunteers at Nourish. Nourish really counts on volunteers to make it run, to get food into the hands of people who need it, to get clothing out to people who need it. And we have regular volunteers who come on a set day of the week. And we have other volunteers who come as they are able, especially for many of us who are still working and we can volunteer a couple times a year. But we encourage people to do that. Trinity has been such an important source of volunteers. Inside the only gallery in Trinity Cathedral, of course, we have drop-off bins for people who want to donate, even if it's the used pill bottles that are used for shampoo or toiletries that we get out to people. If it's non-perishable food items or clothing items, we always need men's clothing because men tend to wear clothing until it's worn out and we don't have as much. So we definitely need that. The church has also been an important source of leadership at Nourish Phoenix, including I'm just one of many people who've served on the board at Nourish Phoenix over the years.
Trinity's involvement in Nourish Phoenix is one way for the church and its members to live the mission. I am hungry, I need some food. And we can think about that and we can pray about that, but sometimes you just have to take action. And this is one way to satisfy the need that we're called to do.
Trinity Cathedral is always working to make connections, both with Nourish Phoenix and for Nourish Phoenix. And an example is the elementary school. Dunbar Elementary School is one of the poorest school districts, one of the poorest schools in the area. And weirdly enough, they were not aware of or were not utilizing Nourish Phoenix. And so it was a matter of saying, folks, you're looking for this. Nourish Phoenix has this, and not duplicating. Dunbar wanted to duplicate a lot of stuff that Nourish Phoenix is already doing. But we're also doing that with the other elementary schools we're working with, is making sure that they're aware of Nourish Phoenix and the services that are available to them and the food and what have you. That this is a prime resource for folks. And I think it's great that Nourish Phoenix they did the COVID vaccinations, and what a great spot to do it. And so to hook that up within the community. So it's constantly making people aware of Nourish Phoenix, but also making the other organizations aware of the services and making Nourish Phoenix aware that these organizations out here are doing these kind of things. So it's kind of a growing soup of connections.
Most of our food comes from St. Mary's Food Bank. They're our primary partner in the food pantry, with grocery rescue, produce, dairy. So our boxes we try to make them as nutritious as possible. And one of our goals in the last 2 years was to bring in more fresh produce. So we started purchasing some produce because, once it sits for a while, it loses its nutritional value. And so we started working with Sun Produce. We work with the Grant Park Community Garden. We have 6 beds there. And you can find volunteer opportunities in the garden as well, where that produce comes into the pantry. So that's one of our goals. For our families, we know that there's vitamin A deficiencies in South Phoenix. There's a lot of diabetes. So food as medicine, as we talk about what that brings to a person, it's really important to have a balanced box available. And we're also talking about client choice. So right now we pack our boxes, but we may be moving forward to provide more of a grocery store model so people can choose what they want for their own household.
Well, I go way back. My mother was a long-time volunteer at ICM. Every Tuesday morning she would go to ICM, starting in I think the 80s when it was on 3rd Avenue, I believe, before it even came to this location. And so it just was a part of our lives that she would go to ICM every Tuesday. So when came time, I'm a teacher, so in the summers I could then join her, and I would come down every Tuesday. And eventually I got to stop teaching for a bit of time, and I got very involved with the board and then was board president for a couple of years. So I go way back, and I mean ICM/Nourish Phoenix is absolutely in my heart. And I do all I can to promote and let people that don't know about it know about it.
My first experience with Interfaith Cooperative Ministries, as it was known back then, was when I was in high school, probably 30 or more years ago. At Valley Lutheran High School up at Camelback and 7th Avenue, we volunteered and came down to the old ICM location down on 3rd Avenue, close to downtown Phoenix. And I did what so many volunteers do their first time. I was in the clothing room. I folded and sorted clothing that had come in as donations. I also grew up in a Presbyterian church in Paradise Valley that was also very involved. So I grew up knowing who Interfaith Cooperative Ministries was. When I came to Trinity, in 2009, and not too many years later, I was being greeted after the service at the doors to the Olney Gallery by our deacon Myra Kingsley, who reached her hand out and said, "Do you have any interest or know anyone who would have an interest in being involved in the board of ICM Food and Clothing Bank?" and I ended up becoming a board member.
My involvement with Nourish Phoenix is a way for me to live beyond the walls of the church and to take my limited amount of time, talent, and treasure and expand it in the larger community. I can have a greater impact if I'm involved beyond the walls of the church in the community and combined my efforts and other members of the church and other religious organizations and other non-religious organizations and corporations. And together we can have a meaningful impact on the needs of our community. Our community is not limited to just the folks that show up on Sunday morning. We have a much broader reach than that. And it's our responsibility to be involved and to serve those individuals.
Nourish Phoenix has continued to grow. It is becoming much more well-known out in the community. It has become a very welcoming place. Just coming in this morning to see a mural by La Locota, who is one of the premier muralists in the valley, that is very, very welcoming. And having a sign that says, "Welcome, we're glad that you're here." For our volunteers, for the people, the clients who come in and use the services of Nourish Phoenix, that's very important because oftentimes they're not welcomed and they're not treated as if people are glad to see them. And to have that place where we build a bit of community in addition to meeting needs and helping to do our duty of eliminating poverty, I think is something that has me very, very excited about Nourish Phoenix. I'm very glad to see where it's come.
Well, I love kids volunteering. I think that is so important, and Nourish Phoenix is nice in that they will allow children to come down here and be here. I've been in a couple of organizations, so I know our youth group has done stuff. NCL is another organization that during the summers especially, they have people come down. I think kids need to understand that there's a bigger world out there than just their little world. And once they start volunteering, it gets into them. They realize that this is fun. It does form community. I love somebody mentioned it earlier about community. And not only, I think when we would come down to ICM, volunteers would come to ICM, it was a community. I mean, those were your buddies, and you enjoyed working together to try and make someone else's life a little better. So kids, I think they can learn very early on that the world is bigger than they are, and that they have a place in it to be able to help make sure that the world is a little better because of something that they've done.
Without partners, without Trinity, without the faith-based community, without our corporate partners, without just individuals giving, I mean, we wouldn't exist. And so as we move forward as an organization, as we expand programming, as we ask people coming in here, the community members, what they need, and being able to provide other services as you grow and adapt and change, I think it's so important that the partners know what's needed and what our customers need to allow us to grow in ways we hadn't thought of before. And so we're going through our construction project. We're going to be making some changes. We've changed our name, which was really huge in the last couple of years. And thanks to all of our partners, that has been embraced. And I think we're really ready to do some things that in growth mode that we haven't thought of before and we haven't had the ability to do before. But now we're ready, and we're really excited about the future and just thankful to Trinity and all of our partners for allowing us to be here in the community and provide services every day, because it's so important. And when you come in and see that, and anybody can come in and see what we do, it's just so important to do that and to realize what a difference and impact the partners make in the mission of the organization.
I think that some of the things that people can do from inside of our congregation is to continue to donate, whether it is food or clothing items or personal hygiene items. We're not that far from Trinity Cathedral to come down to Nourish at 9th Avenue, just south of the railroad tracks, but we certainly do collect on Sundays as well. You can donate financially. You can follow on social media. You can spread the word about Nourish Phoenix and continue to get the word out for volunteers, as well as for people who need to take advantage of the services that Nourish Phoenix offers.
So there was an ordination at the cathedral a couple of weeks ago, and the bishop spoke of the reason people become deacons is because they're constantly asking the question, why? Why are there people who are hungry? Why are there people without this? Why are people needing this, that, and the other thing? And Nourish Phoenix fits into that why question. That you're looking around at your community and you're looking outside the doors of the cathedral and you're seeing people that are hurting or they're hungry or they don't have adequate housing or they don't have whatever it is their need. And so anytime that you can work with folks or network with, you can help people find what they need and what enriches their life and makes their life kinder and better and whatever, that's incredibly rewarding.